the heart and soul behind every business. Stories. Welcome to Business Story of the Week, hosted by me, Joshua Laurie. From setbacks to comebacks, from tragedies to triumphs, we inspire entrepreneurs through conversations that matter. Witness the magic that turns dreams into reality. Whether it's your career, business, or life, your success is always one story away. This is Business Story of the Week.
Hello, my name is Lisa DeAngelis, and this is Business Story of the Week.
And ladies and gentlemen, that was Lisa, and I am your host, Joshua. And welcome back to the show once again. And today's question is how does embracing the unknown unlock our fullest potential? And our guest for today, Lisa DeAngelis, is the perfect guest to answer that question. She is a holistic change practitioner, author, and speaker, and a skilled expert in the art of navigating sustainable change and guiding personal and leadership transformation. Lisa brings a warm, thoughtful, creative approach to her work and is sought after for her ability to weave together ideas. Lisa's personal goals include a commitment to walking her talk and helping re-envision how leaders can navigate change with more authenticity and intentionality to embrace the process of growth. Her debut book, Embracing the Unknown, Exploring the Pathways to Change, offers research, wisdom, and aspirational stories that empower others in their quest to gracefully navigate change in their lives. And might I add, their meaningful change in our lives. And Lisa, I am quite excited. Thank you for agreeing to come on the show. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you for being willing to have me and letting me talk about this topic, which I'm incredibly passionate about.
Well, Lisa, I can already feel the passion and the love for what you do and the topic and the message that you talk about. But Lisa, what was the young Lisa like? What was the young Lisa DeAngelis like? Did she always know she was going to be an author, a holistic practitioner? Did she always have a love for transformational change?
That's a big fat no. And actually, one of the I'll say funny parts of my story, but
Mhm.
a part of me is here today for the people who did not have the path that they probably
Mm.
anticipated they might, or the people that have been thrown a lot of curveballs in their lives. Because I was actually a singer when I was young. I did my
Oh, wow.
undergraduate in voice and music education, and I was actually a
Wow.
classically trained singer. So my path
Wow.
from being a performer or an aspirational performer all the way to what I'm doing today has been extraordinarily broad and really, really interesting because it's woven me along all sorts of different paths. So, no, it was not something that I always knew I wanted to do. It's something that landed because of the way my life unfolded, which was that as I
Wow.
followed my passions, all of a sudden I found myself in very different environments, very different jobs, very different
Mhm.
circumstances. And it required a lot of skills and tools and resources for me to dig deep. And the interesting
Mhm.
part was I had all of them inside me. I just didn't know it.
Right.
So this process of
Right.
unfolding over time and figuring out at my core
Wow.
what really defines who I am has been the biggest part of my journey.
I love that. I love that. And of course, you mentioned curveballs, but also you mentioned unfolding, which I really love because it's funny how that works, right? You follow your passions, you follow something you love, and then you like all of a sudden, why am I doing this? Well, I never pictured myself doing this as part of my life or as part of my career, but it's still part of your path, so to speak, right? Because it you followed it because you are unfolding your because of your passion is the passion that you're following, but also I think more importantly it's the who, right? Once you
Mm.
figured out that who, you can unfold that path, the passion that you follow, and then it takes us to these remarkable journeys that we never expected. But of course, you come to a point now where you teach holistic change, you teach meaningful transformation to your audience, your readers. Lisa, talk to us about the change methods that you've encountered in your life, how you've applied them, and how do you continue to teach them today?
Yeah, thank you. Great question. So, navigating change is not something that's totally unfamiliar to a lot of people because organizational change in businesses
Mm,
is really well known. I mean, people study this. There are all sorts of systems, there are all sorts of processes that people can go through,
mhm,
and they've been studied, they've been researched, they've been detailed down. But what I
mhm.
found fascinating when I started writing my book and really digging into that research on change is there's almost no research on personal change.
Mm,
And
mm.
now we can take some things from organizational or business related change and apply
Interesting.
them to personal change. But
Interesting.
there are just some really interesting, unique edges to what it means to transform as an individual that we
Interesting.
sort of need to grab onto. So, one of my most kind of basic and well known organizational change methods I like to start talking about with people is Kurt
Mm.
Lewin's method, right? And it's sort of change in 3 easy steps. And it's
Okay,
sort of,
please.
yeah. Are you familiar with it?
Well, I have heard of it, but I've never really been like mentioned it in depth. So I'm very excited about this one. So please talk to us a little bit about that. For our audience listeners to kind of recap it clearly. These are 3 steps, like you said. And what is it called again, Lisa?
Yeah. The researcher who just sort of identified and worked with
Hmm.
this, his name was Kurt Lewin, and he's very
Kurt
well known
Lewin.
sort of in this organizational change management field, right?
Yes. Yes.
And
Hmm.
I think part of what's really interesting is it's
Hmm.
sort of like the 3 easy steps are you unfreeze, you move, or you change, and then you
Okay.
solidify or you kind of refreeze the change. So if you think about it
Okay.
like the analogy of water, so to speak, right?
Right.
Like
Right. Right.
water
Right.
has different forms. So
Okay.
if you're starting as an ice cube and you want to change something, you kind of melt the
Okay.
ice cube and then you can pour it into a different form and then
Yes.
that
Yes.
changes
Yes.
it.
Yes.
And then you can refreeze it
Yes.
and it holds its new form until it's time to
Mm,
change it again. So
I
that's a
love
really
that.
cool way, I think, to think about change and applying
Hmm.
what that
Hmm.
is. But the process
Hmm.
of doing that as an individual can be kind of challenging because if I said to you,
Of course.
Joshua, okay, we're just going to go ahead and unfreeze you. We're going to melt you down and we're going to shift you around. You exactly. Your
Mhm,
face is
mhm.
going, I don't
I
think
don't know
so. I'm
about that.
pretty happy. I don't know about that. And there's a lot of vulnerability that gets brought up
Mhm,
for people when this
mhm.
idea of we've got to let go of something in
Right,
order to move towards something else. So the
right,
unknown
right,
becomes something really interesting. And something I
right.
like to talk about when I'm working with people is anything we haven't done yet is actually an unknown.
Mhm,
But
mhm,
it's really
mhm.
easy to get caught up in unknown being like space, where it's like all of this unknown out there that's big and
Mystery.
overwhelming and mysterious and
Mhm,
scary, you know? And
mhm.
yes, sometimes things we don't know can be overwhelming, can be mysterious, can be scary.
Yes,
But anything
yes,
we don't know yet is an unknown to us at a current point. And
yes.
then we develop the tools and resources to learn a little bit more. So,
Mhm,
as I work with
mhm.
people, I dig into some of these tools and resources. And 3 of the biggest tools that I love talking about and applying are adaptability, resilience, and courage. And on the surface,
Wow,
those don't necessarily seem like active tools, but they're some of the most useful tools when it comes to change because
I
they're
love that.
things that we all do. We are
Mhm.
naturally adaptable, we are naturally resilient,
Resilience,
and we
right.
have quite a bit of courage because
Courage.
we're
Yes,
constantly doing things that we've never done
yes.
before,
Of
right?
course, of
But we
course, of
forget
course.
that these
That's
are
true.
tools we can apply to change
Every day, and it's something
every
that we
day.
do every day. Like it's true. I love it because we feel like again, no one likes change because it's uncomfortable. But more importantly, I feel like it's more the fear of the unknown, right? We just don't want
Mm.
we don't want anything that we are not sure what the results are going to be, right? So but there's always this quote that says like the life that you want to live is behind that unknown, like that behind that fear. And then we always fear doing that unknown, but at the same time it's like we do the unknown every day of our lives. We're just not aware of it. It's not like, well, you have a routine, perhaps going to work, you're doing this job, or going to your family, or you have a day out, like a free day out. But everything that's about to happen today, literally this conversation, this interview, and what happens after it, is the unknown. We don't know
Absolutely.
how it's going to turn out. I love that you link it back always to that, because we do have that courage. But also I love how you did, by the way, the ice cube. You did the unfreezing, remolding, and freezing you up again. But you kind of like did your own three steps thing where you did adaptability, resilience, and courage instead. Lisa, talk to us a little bit more in depth about these methods of yours. Why is adaptability, first of all, very important when it comes to change? I think it's in our nature again. And again, how did they all tie together when it comes to resilience and, of course, courage?
Yeah, thank you. One thing I want to mention, you sort of said it when you were responding right there, is that, I think you said something like none of us like change or something like
At
that,
all. Yeah, we fear
I know, I can
change.
see you going, no,
Mm.
thank you, right? I think it's a really interesting question to ask ourselves, what is our relationship to change? If change is something that
Oh,
happens
wow.
to us, if change is just something that happens to us and we passive observers and we're stuck doing whatever change wants us to do, then I don't think a lot of people would like change. But
Mhm.
if change was a relationship with the way we interacted with the world, what possibilities does that give us? Because then
Right.
change doesn't have to be something bad or negative or, different isn't always bad. It's
Different.
unfamiliar. I'll give you
Mm.
that.
Mm.
Absolutely. But this is
Mm.
where the adaptability comes in, is because
Right.
just because something is unfamiliar doesn't mean it's bad. I don't know
I
if you
love
can
that.
think back to a time when you've done something that you hadn't done before, or
Right.
you've been sitting on your couch for
Uh,
a really long time and you go and sit into another chair, and all of a sudden you go, oh, this chair isn't very comfortable. But then the
mhm,
next day you
mhm.
go sit down on the other chair and you go, actually, this is a really comfortable chair. Why did it feel so uncomfortable before? Right?
Huh.
And so this
Right.
idea
Right.
of
Right.
adaptability is really interesting because our body gets used to something, an idea, a situation, an
Ah.
environment, and it becomes comfortable and it creates a habit right away. And
Oh,
then in
interesting.
order to move out of that habit, we need to apply this sense of adaptability. What's our environment? What's going on
Yes.
here? And how
Mhm.
can we be in a different relationship with our environment in this moment in order
Mhm.
to make the most out of it? That's really, for me,
Wow.
what adaptability is.
Wow, I love that. I love that because adaptability. I love the couch analogy, by the way, because at first we didn't think like it was going to be comfortable, but we do adapt. Eventually, we like it. I just read this recently, and I just want to kind of compare it because
Sure.
apparently in ping pong with paddles, uh, you wear down the rubber, and it gets to a point where you know the right amount of power to apply to it. So when you go into a competition, a tournament, then you use a new paddle. It's completely different than what you're used to because you start to adapt to that paddle with the rubber worn down because now you can apply. It's the same as adaptability. Exactly, exactly,
Totally.
totally
Another
different.
great example that made me think of is
Hmm.
driving a different car than you're used to driving. And you
Oh,
touch the
there you
brakes,
go.
and there's a different relationship with the
Yes,
brakes, and you
yes,
go, oh,
yeah.
oh, oh, whoa! I
Too
can't
strong.
push on
Ooh.
the brake that hard. Will
Hmm.
jolt somebody
Hmm.
next to me sitting in the
Hmm.
passenger seat. So
Hmm.
we very quickly are used to adapting, but when it
Right,
comes
right.
to change, we forget that that's a skill that we have. Now, resiliency is a really interesting
Hmm.
one to.
Please,
Oh, I'm sorry.
please.
Were you going to ask another question?
Well, I love that because you literally connected it to resiliency right away. Because change, when it comes to resiliency, uh, we fear change constantly, but it feels like we are capable of it. But why do we fear it so much when we're so resilient?
Exactly. That's an
Hmm.
interesting question. And I think
Hmm.
the resiliency is interesting because if you ask people what they're really afraid of, a lot
Hmm.
of people are afraid of failure. right?
Yes.
They're afraid of it
Yes.
not working.
Yes.
And
Yes.
if
That's
we
it.
view failure as a one-shot opportunity, yes,
Mhm.
it can be a very high-stakes game. But I love
Mhm.
the reframe of the word fail, F-A-I-L, as first attempt in learning.
And learning. Absolutely.
So if we can view failure as
Mhm.
our first attempt at learning something new,
Mhm.
again, that changes our whole relationship. And that's resilience to me.
Yes.
Falling
Wow.
doesn't
Okay.
mean that we're always on the ground. It just means
Of
that
course.
we had a stumble. And so
Right.
then our ability to get back up and try again is powerful. And you hit it on the head because it takes courage. It takes
It
courage
does take a
because
lot of
it is
courage.
scary every time we put ourselves out there, every time we try something new. But at the end of the day, we do have these skills. They're sort of like muscles that we just have to strengthen by leaning
Exactly.
into them a little bit more, even when they feel
Exactly.
uncomfortable.
Yeah, of course. I mean, it's always uncomfortable, but much like a workout, no one likes working out. But if you do it every day, you flex it, you do your reps, then you start being able to change. You see those changes, and it must feel fulfilling than not changing at all. To me, not changing at all feels more. That's more terrifying. You should be more
Yeah.
terrified if you don't change completely. Lisa, if navigating change is much like steering a ship, what
Mm,
tools or essentials can we need or do we do in our daily lives to stay on course of change? Of course,
mm.
you mentioned all of the tools and the things that we need to do, including courage and everything. What would be an essential one that we can do every day to stay on course?
Yeah, I've got a couple more things for you. I'll drop in when it comes to
Oh,
that. I
please.
love this analogy of steering the ship. That's a great one.
Mhm.
So there's three things that I can say here. So the first one
Mhm.
on a
Please.
daily basis is what I'm going to call stretch. And you just talked about muscles, right? So just the way we
Stretch.
stretch our, yes, stretch, yes. But think about what that means when we're thinking about change. Push
Mhm.
yourself just a little bit outside of what your comfort zone is. And that's a stretch.
Okay.
That's a stretch for your
Okay.
system. If you're
Oh,
used to doing
wow.
the
Okay.
same routine every single day, try walking
Okay.
down a different road. Try going the other
Mhm.
way around the block. Try taking a
Okay.
different route. If you never speak to anyone and talking to people, connecting with people is a challenge for you, say hi to
Mhm.
one person that you don't know. Just one. You don't have
Mhm.
to go and
Mhm.
become someone overnight that, does that. That's a huge thing.
Yes.
Stretching is really huge. The second thing is
Mhm.
permission. Give yourself permission. Give yourself permission to try something. Give yourself permission to go crazy. Give yourself permission. And that is a huge essential piece
I
of
love
something we can do every single day. The third thing
that.
I'll say is perspective. We can get really what I call zoomed in. And when we are over
Okay.
focused and we're too zoomed in, we can't see the bigger
Okay.
picture. So, a
Hmm.
good exercise is to ask yourself once a day, right?
Okay.
Am I seeing this as the bigger picture or am I really, really zoomed in? And if you find yourself zoomed in, can you zoom out a little bit? And if you find
Wow.
yourself kind of wandering around going, everything is around me and I have no idea where to start, try zooming in and saying, let me just zoom in. What's one thing I can do? And it's a really
I love that.
useful skill for all sorts of areas of life. So, one stretch, give yourself permission, and shift up your perspective so you can take a look at what's around you and actually start applying those tools that we were
I love
talking
it.
about
I
earlier.
love these tools. I mean, of course, it's one thing to say the principles and all these teaching, but you're actually giving actionable steps, which I
Yeah.
absolutely love, because it's you can apply this everywhere in your life, in your business, in your career. Of course, there's a show. We have a lot of business entrepreneur audiences and listeners out here. Stretch, change your perspective and give yourself permission to change different things. And I think that really, really will help a lot of our audience who are, starting a business, have, going into entrepreneurship, because that's terrifying. But of course, it's terrifying. You don't want to
Totally.
fail in your business, right? Hmm.
Absolutely. Recently, someone said this to me, and I've been thinking about it a lot.
Oh,
There is a
please.
reason there's a reason that change
Mm-hmm.
doesn't happen immediately. There's a reason that it's a process. Because if we went from 0 to 60 like
Mm-hmm.
that, it would
Mm-hmm.
be really hard to deal with how much has changed, how fast.
Interesting.
So it's
Interesting.
easy to get frustrated that change progresses slowly.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a
Mm-hmm.
really important thing to remember that if we move too far out of our comfort zone, we're just going to get freaked out. And then we're
That
going
is
to
also
go
true.
and kind of go back into our shell and not take any action or not make any
I love
decision. So it's
I
better
love that.
to say, let's just stretch a little bit. Let's just change our
Mm-hmm.
perspective. Let's just give ourselves permission, just one thing at a time, and keep
Mm-hmm.
allowing those changes to happen. You'll be surprised at how quickly
Absolutely.
things start moving.
And I think it's important to talk about. I'm always reminded, it's like, you don't have to do a like complete 100% change. That's overwhelming. And what I'm reminded is all you have to do is that, like, they I was taught, it was my mentor taught me 2%, because we go from 50-50, right? You need to change from here to there. All you have to do is like a 51% or 49%. You kind of just very little to kind of teeter over onto that other side, and that's already change. Or like rather a 1% every day. All it takes, a 1% change every day. You keep doing that, and I think you'll find meaningful transformational change in your life. And I love that you talked about that, because that isn't talked about enough. That's why I feel one reason why we fear change is because we're expecting this massive shift in our lives. And it's like, we can't steer a ship that large immediately. We need to feel the wind. We need to feel the water. We need to feel the waves, so to speak. Lisa, you continue to spread this message of intentional change, conscious choice, and authentic connection. I love those things. And now that you are teaching them, I understand that, of course, you practice them in your own lives as well. How have you seen it intertwine, those all of these things? How have you seen it intertwine to create a fulfilling life, not just for yourself, but everyone else that you teach it to?
Yeah, that's such a great. I just had this beautiful image when you said that, it's sort of like
Wow.
when we're passionate about something, we shine our light in the world in whatever way that
Mm-hmm.
shows up, and we help
Mm-hmm.
illuminate other people, and that's really cool,
Mm-hmm.
especially in a world where it is so easy to get caught up in the fact that we see a very filtered version of most people's
Right.
lives on social
Right.
media. We see the results, we
Right.
don't see the process. So one of my important mission pieces is to normalize the fact that everybody goes through these processes. Everybody has
Mm-hmm.
challenges. Everybody has moments of failure. Everybody has moments of questioning, right?
Mm-hmm.
We all have them. We just don't talk about them very much.
Yes.
So what happens if we normalize the fact that we are always a work in process? We are always
Wow.
a work in process because we're never there. It's never going to be the end point. And if it is, well, I guess that's really like we've lived our lives at that point, right? But it's
Exactly.
so easy to get obsessed with like the goalposts of getting there to one spot. But
Of course.
in reality, we are always a work in process, a life in
We are
process.
all.
Yeah.
Of course, the navigation into the journey that we take on isn't like isn't a race. Again, they always say it's a marathon. It's going to be a long ride. Just relax. Put yourself in there. Try different things. Right? It's a work in progress. I love that you've
And
reminded us
enjoy
today.
it.
And enjoy it. That's the most important part. Enjoy it. I mean, there's fear in the unknown, but there's also joy in the unknown. I think that's very, very important to remind our audience and listeners today. And Lisa, you are giving us so much insight, so much perspective that I feel we can apply not just in our life, but in our career and our business as well. Of course, the website is lisadeangelis.com, spelled DEANGELIS.com. Lisa, where else can we find you? Where else can we look for you and you connect with you? We'd love to get to know you more.
Thank you so much. Yes, I'm on Instagram and LinkedIn. Please feel free to connect with me. I love having conversations with people, virtual
Hmm.
coffees, real coffee. I'm based in New York
Hmm.
City. Reach out. And I would absolutely love it if you considered grabbing a copy of my book, as Joshua mentioned, Embracing the Unknown, Exploring the Pathways to Change. You can grab a copy, signed copy on my website, or anywhere that you prefer to buy books, Amazon, Target, Barnes & Noble online, all of those places. So thank you in advance. And I appreciate your support because we're all doing it. We're all navigating change constantly, even if we don't admit it to ourselves.
That is true. That is true. Every day we are changing, we're navigating it. And sometimes you know, we just need people like Lisa to help us navigate that change.
I'm
We need
here.
that people in our lives. Yes, you go. Of course, and of course, look for Lisa. Go check out her website. Go connect with her. Get a copy of her book. And of course, Lisa, I'm very very happy and thank you for coming on to the show.
Thank you so much.
And to all our audience and listeners out there, once again, that was Lisa DeAngelis. I am your host Joshua. Thank you for watching the episode, and we will see you on the next one. Bye bye.
All right, so here's the thing. We try to get a little bit better every day, but we can't do it without you. So if you like the video, make sure to like and subscribe below. And if you have any comments, just leave them in the space under.